Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Sling of Ages podcast. I'm your host, Preston Frazier. The podcast can be reached at slingofages.com, or you can email me directly at slingofages@me.com. This is season 4, episode number 3. And in this episode, we're going to do something a little bit unusual for the podcast. We're going to look at a current release. This is the 2023 release of José James's album On and On, and it's kind of a tribute to Erykah Badu. Before we get to that, for those of you who aren't listeners or regular listeners, this podcast is really a labor of love for me. I really enjoy reviewing my record collection. So for 4 seasons, we've been listening to albums which I love, and this certainly qualifies as an album which I loved. We have explored albums from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and this, like I said, is 2023. So let's get started with José James's On and On. I don't think I've touched on any of José James's albums yet. And I don't really remember how I found out about José James. Most of the albums and people I talk about on this podcast have a link somewhere in my past where this artist played with this artist, so I knew this artist from this artist. With José James, it's kind of a mystery. And I have all of his albums, and I've actually seen him live here in Atlanta a few years ago. He has quite an extensive music career. It started at the New School of Jazz and Contemporary Music in New York, and his debut album, The Dreamer, came out in 2008 on Brownswood Records. Black Magic followed in 2010, which was actually re-released, and his albums have made some of my best of lists for the past 3 or 4 years. He's also done some interesting albums that weren't original compositions. For example, I think it was 2 years ago, he did an album which featured the works of Bill Withers. He also has featured work of Billie Holiday, which is by far one of my favorite cover albums. It's just a gorgeous album, so you should check that out. For this album, he really decided to stretch a little bit, and he incorporated a live band and recorded them really in one day with just one take. I should also mention that he recorded the band for his label, Rainbow Blonde Records, which he created with his wife and his partner, Tally. And she has an album coming out just in a few weeks, which I hope to review as well. So as I mentioned, the album was recorded live in one take. It features a stellar band, Ebban Dorsey on alto sax, Diana Zahara, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Zabahara on flute and alto sax, BIGYUKI, that's his name, BIGYUKI, which is one word, on fender rhodes, organ, and synthesizers, the great bass player Ben Williams on electric bass, and Jharis Yokley on drums. And the band, even though they recorded this in one day, and José James has recorded with various members of the band throughout his career, they sound as if they've been playing together for forever. And as I mentioned, this was just recorded in one day with this band playing live and José James doing most of his vocals live. Now, if you buy the album CD version of the album or the vinyl release, which comes out, I believe, next week or comes out very soon, he talks in the liner notes about his love for Erykah Badu's songs and her arrangements and, of course, her voice. And Badu is an artist who I know of and have some of her songs, but not terribly familiar with. And the interpretations of her songs that he does are quite fascinating. It made me go back and listen to the original versions of each of the songs. And the contrast is great in terms of Badu representing what people call neo soul, and José James interpreting her neo soul in a jazz and hip hop element. So it's quite a ride. The song that On and On starts with the journey. And this features a fantastic rhythm provided by Dorsey and BIGYUKI's acoustic piano. James plays tongue drums on the song and also uses a singing bowl, which creates a unique atmospheric sound. And Dzhabbar adds her magic as well. Now, all this really happens before James enters with his vocal, and he's a master vocalist. He's a great guitarist, he's a good keyboardist, he's an excellent writer, but his vocals are jazz perfection. He can do jazz, he can do R&B, he can do rock, he can do contemporary stuff. And with these lyrics, singing Badu's vivid and contemporary lyrics, he does a fantastic job on moving the song forward and setting the mood. And it just sets up the whole album. You just want to sit back and enjoy it. Now, the subject matter for On and On isn't exactly optimistic, but that's okay because it's still great music. The next song, Didn't You Know, finds Ebban Dorsey stepping to the front and center with his alto sax. Ben Williams is also prominent with his electric bass, and he enhances the cosmic lyrics that Badu created. James provides a perfect arrangement. He did the arrangement for this entire album. He did the vocal arrangements and the instrumental arrangements. And of course, he did all the vocals on the album. And this is kind of a laid back, restrained vocal here. And it works perfectly. And the message that he's portraying with his vocal is chilling and also very welcome. The song Green Eyes may be familiar with some of you. This is the closing track from Badu's seminal album, Mama's Gun. And it's represented in On and On in a proper epic fashion. This neo soul gem doesn't provide James with the neo soul gem does provide James with a foundation which he can build a beautiful arrangement on for the entire band. It gives the band ample room to stretch. I think Dzhabbar is on tenor sax, and he gets a great solo. And James's phrasing throughout the song and throughout the album is exquisite. BIGYUKI's piano and Yokley's delicate brushwork on the drums stretch the song out and take you on a beautiful ride for the first third of the song. There are touches of 70s era synth sounds, kind of very similar to what you would hear on a Rufus and Chaka Khan album. And then Williams's bass playing is exquisite. It's such a sonic gem to hear these musicians together, and the arrangement is very different from the original, but is fantastic. The final 2/3 of the album changes the vibe totally from the first third, yet it's near perfection. It picks up the pace. It has a great denouement. Following such an adventuresome and emotional song is a challenging task, but the healer makes a commendable effort at that. The song, which was originally for Badu's New America Part 1, Fourth World War album, is a fascinating take on the original. It forgoes the electronic trappings of the original, and James uses his acumen as an arranger to change the whole feel of the song, yet not get too far away from Badu's original vision. Williams's metronomic drums and BIGYUKI's Fender Rhodes do most of the heavy lifting rhythmically, but Dorsey's alto sax builds an intensity along with the rhythm section. James provides his most laid back and processed vocal, which is pitch perfect. It is perfect for the song, perfect arrangement, and a perfect interpretation of this Badu classic. Then he steps up to produce the song Gone Baby, Don't Be Long, which is from Badu's, I think it's her 2010 release, New America Part 2, Return to Anki, Ankh, whatever that is, Anki. The original may be a perfect example of what people call neo soul. Yet you can't help but think how Badu's lyrics would be better served in the original she did with less sterile arrangements. The song had a lot of electronics on it. And I think it was a time when people did that. And they still actually do that. James's arrangement provides more of an opportunity for the musicians to stretch. Again, Ben Williams' bass parts are dynamic and perfectly in the mix. Yokley's drum back beat dances around the rhythm and has just the right amount of space. And James's vocals are front and center, and the song just has an incredible feel to it, probably because of the acoustic piano and also Dorsey's tenor saxophone, which treads the line between R&B and jazz. This is a superb song. Then we hit the song Out My Mind Just in Time. Out My Mind Just in Time. And in its original form, it also treads a line between Badu's strength as a lyricist. Um, Here, James's arrangements are slightly smoky and more of a jazz feel than Badu's work. The synth work on this song also recalls 70s era R&B. Hawk Walensky, who was one of the keyboard players for Rufus and Chaka Khan, comes to mind with his cat synthesizer kind of sound and is present here as well. The song is less than 3 minutes long, leaving the listener begging for more. And I think that's exactly what you want in an album. It is pure genius. But the closing song, Bag Lady, further confirms the genius of Badu as a lyricist. The original, also from Mama's Gun, utilizes guitar and vibes, and you also uses vibes Roy Ayers to provide a fantastic feel to the song. But James's version is a little bit more laid back in the rhythm section, with Williams sounding particularly inspired on his bass and Yokley providing a nuanced groove. James tackles his vocals with the confidence of a seasoned jazzer. Dzhabbar is given an opening and sprinkles some additional magic with his flute, which is a fitting in to a near perfect song and also a fitting in to a near perfect album. So as this is being recorded, Jose James is hitting the road to tour for On and On, and he's making some media appearances as well. I highly urge you to find this album on Bandcamp. I have it on CD, and I'm awaiting the colored vinyl version to come out any day now. He has, like I mentioned, a fantastic catalog, so I'm going to recommend a few additional albums from his catalog. His first album, The Dreamer, in 2008. The follow-up, Black Magic, came out in 2009, which is stellar. No Beginning, No End, which came out on Blue Note in 2012. The fantastic album Yesterday, I Had the Blues, the music of Billie Holiday in 2015. The album was one of my favorite jazz albums of the year. Lean on Me, which came out in 2018, also on Blue Note, and I think it was produced by Don Was. Is stellar and a great tribute to Bill Withers. No Beginning, No End, 2020, which came out on Jose James's own label, Rainbow Blonde. He had a Christmas album, which came out in 2021, and now On and On. The man is a genius. He's only 45, so he has a lot more years ahead of him, and his record company is producing some great work. So, in this unusual episode for the Slang of Ages podcast, we talked about Jose James's brand new album. This was episode number 3 of the season. Next time we'll talk about another soul album. This one will be a soul classic, but I do appreciate you hanging in there and going through a review of Jose James's On and On. Again, you can reach out to me at slangofages@me.com or my website, slangofages.com. You can also check out my work on somethingelse.reviews.com. Please rate my podcast. The more ratings we have, the more listeners I get. And thank you for joining me for season 4. I'll see you very soon.